Hey guys, here to do a review for The Phantom Menace. So let's just get into it, shall we? Sorry this has taken a while to get to. Go watch my Blu-ray review for The Force Awakens. I explain why it's taken so long there. In a nutshell, a lot of technical problems. Annoying. That's what the last few days you haven't gotten anything from me because I've been trying to figure out what I need to do. This is actually my dad's camera. Hopefully this will do fine. I might have to use this from now on, so let me know what you think in the comments of the quality of this camera. I actually don't think it's too bad, although I definitely prefer the quality on the iPhone better. Alright, so The Phantom Menace. The way I'm going to do this is going to talk about positives, negatives, and then I'm going to give the film a rating. So, first things first, Ewan McGregor. I think Ewan McGregor is by far the best thing to come out of The Phantom Menace. Not because he was necessarily spectacular in The Phantom Menace itself, but because of how he carried the character through the prequels. He by far fully embodied the Alec Guinness-ness of Obi-Wan, and I love it, and by far I think he's the best thing out of this movie. Liam Neeson as Qui-gon Jinn is amazing. I'll say more about him later. Darth Maul, Ray Park, I mean, you just can't go wrong. I mean, he looked cool with the horns and the black and the red and the double sided lightsaber. I mean, it was all just fantastic. Again, just like Qui-Gon, I'll say more about him later. The lightsaber battle, the Duel of the Fates battle at the end of the movie, oh my gosh. As much as I will always say that the original trilogy is better than the prequels, you gotta let's be honest with one another. The lightsaber duels were kind of hokey in the original trilogy, but it makes sense story-wise, that I will talk about that in another Star Wars video that will hopefully be coming out soon. But yeah, I love the lightsaber battles and the prequels because they're really flashy and flamboyant, and I really enjoy that. Lastly, I gotta say I'm one of the people that actually I really enjoyed the pod racing. Let's go ahead and go into the negatives. I guess one of the things that we'll say about the pod racing, though, is because one of my negatives is the length of the pod racing. Because here's the thing, as much as I enjoyed the pod racing, when I say I like the pod racing, I kind of mean more, I like the idea of the pod racing. I like the concept, I like having these different creatures racing, and, just the whole idea of it. What I didn't like about it is how they implemented it into the story that was being told. Because this is what they did. They gave us a really cool action scene mixed in with a lot of tension because of the story that was leading up to it. Literally, you can say the pod racing part of the movie takes about roughly half of the film. That's way too long. Way too long. Because they set up everything with Shmi and Watto and Anakin and playing, Watto's greediness, and then they give us this big long pod race, and they either needed to use a much simpler storyline and then give us that really epic pod race, or they needed to stick with the story but have a little bit less pod race and maybe use it a little bit differently. Because getting a little bit off track from the movie, one of my favorite games when I was a kid around the time when this movie came out was the Pod Racer video game, and I loved having the different maps that you could go to and race on. So, we see all these different worlds that, you could race and all this stuff. So I don't know why they could have done like a shorter map or a shorter course for them to go around versus this big long thing, on Bunta Eve or whatever it was called. So that's my complaint there. Then we get into them killing Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul. That, I think, was a complete miss as far as the story goes, because had they kept Qui-Gon in at least until the second film, I feel like, because here's the thing, and I'm going to say this right off the bat, I'm not against them killing Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, I actually think that's the right move to make. but it's how they did it. It's you can't just you gotta have flair. You can't just do something like that without doing something special with it or making it mean something. I feel like they completely threw the character away the way they did it. Again, as much as I love the Duel of the Fates fight at the end of the film, we didn't really know Qui-Gon Jinn that well. Like, we understood we understood his motives a little bit. We got that he really cared about Anakin. We got that he felt Obi-Wan was, ready to be kind of on his own. But we really did. We know Qui-Gon because we know the other characters. We don't know Qui-Gon because we know Qui-Gon. And so when he dies, as emotional and sad a moment that is, it could have been played off so much better if they would have kept him alive to the next film. And I say the same thing about Darth Maul. I mean, Darth Maul is a character that literally only has like 2 or 3 lines in this entire movie. The rest of it is all just action and him moving and walking or fighting. And I believe the same things about Qui-Gon as I believe about Darth Maul. They did not use him to his full potential because they also killed him off in the first movie. And, this was before everything that happened on Clone Wars and all that. And I believe that a big reason why they brought him back on Clone Wars was because they realized they messed up and they had to appease the fans. Just to give an idea, because, everybody says, well, if you think they should have done it differently, then, offer something. I'm like, all right, well, okay. This is kind of going into the Attack of the Clones review, but that's okay. Okay, so at the beginning of the Attack of the Clones, we see the ship going in and it lands and they think everything's safe and blue, it all, goes kablooey. All right, well, have something like that happen. Not at the very beginning of the movie like that, but in the second movie, you're going to have Obi-Wan and Anakin and Qui-Gon all there together for some reason. It doesn't matter what. It depends on the story. But, you have them all there. Let's say halfway through the movie or 30 minutes into the movie, and there's an explosion and it costs Qui-Gon his life and Qui-Gon dies in the process. Okay, so at this point, let's assume that Obi-Wan is now on his own as a Jedi and Qui-Gon is now training Anakin. Then Qui-Gon dying would force Anakin, well, not force, but it would make Anakin become Obi-Wan's apprentice. And so there we go, right back where we already have it. It would give Qui-Gon a much bigger impact on the story if he were to die there. And you could even have it, Darth Maul is wanting revenge after what happened on Tatooine. Maybe one of his arms get cut off. Because I like the idea of Darth Maul being kind of robotic, or has that, whatever you want to call it, mechanical. And so, what if one of his arms got chopped off and, he's upset because he lost a limb because of this stupid Jedi, on Naboo. So he, he could, plant. And, a lot of the themes that were already in Attack of the Clones would still be there, but in a much, I feel like, bigger, more impactful way. The next thing is no clear direction. This movie has no clear direction. Example, when you watch Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith or any of the other Star Wars movies, there are clearly characters that we're following. In the prequels, it's Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme. Those are the clear, set characters in that movie. Yeah, we have Yoda and Mace Windu, and we've got a bunch of other people. But those 3 characters are the characters that we are following in this story. Everybody else is just furthering the story around them. There's nothing like that in The Phantom Menace. We're following Padme, and we're following Anakin, and we're following Obi-Wan, and we're following Qui-Gon, and we're following the stupid Gungans. We're doing all of this, and there's no cohesion about what's happening, and it gets so distracting and so hard to watch because there's no clear vision. And you can tell that by the Duel of the Fate scene of the movie, which is my favorite lightsaber battle but a lot of the rest of it is really needed. Because think about this. All at once, we have the Padme stuff going on Naboo. We have the lightsaber battle going on Naboo. We've got Anakin and the Starfighter, and then we have the Gungans fighting the droids. We have 4 battles all happening all at once, and it's just way too much. It's too much happening at once. You need to condense it down. There was no need to have 2 of those battles. And I'll leave it up to you to decide what you think, but in my opinion, they could have completely done without the Anakin stuff being in space, and they could have completely gone without the Gungans having to be involved in the battle. They could have narrowed it down to Padme and Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, and it would have been so much better. So much better. So much better. And they would have a little bit of time, like maybe 5-6 minutes worth, to do something new and different. We would have gotten a more epic epilogue to the film, instead of a really quick, Qui-Gon's death thing, and then a really short celebration and the end of the movie. They could have really drawn that out and really gave us a better ending. But instead, all of that took up so much time, because you gotta go to the Gungans, then you gotta go to Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, and then you gotta go to it's just a lot. And then Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks is the last thing that I really have as a negative, because he's useless. I understand that Lucas was trying to do something more for kids and have a character that kids would enjoy, but do they think did he think kids are stupid? Seriously? There are some goofy characters and other properties that kids like because they're goofy and because they're funny, but keep that stuff away from Star Wars. That's my opinion. Now, with all that said, I don't like Jar Jar, but I have nothing against the Gungans. It's how the Gungans were used. I feel like if I had gotten a better first date with the Gungans and Phantom Menace, I wouldn't feel so apprehensive to them when I watch the Clone Wars, or God forbid if they ever show up on Rebels. I would have felt much better about them if it wasn't for the Phantom Menace. If all the Gungans were more like Captain Topples, I think that's his name, if I remember right, if they were more like him and less like Jar Jar, or if Jar Jar wasn't in the picture at all, they're not ever going to be one of my favorite creatures or species in Star Wars, but I wouldn't hate them. I wouldn't hate them, And here's the thing: you could have a character named Jar Jar Binks, and have him done well. But it was the way they did him. It's not even the way he looks, because he's a Gungan, But here, the last thing I'll say about Jar Jar before I give the rating is, if they would have done something like, hey, instead of him being banished for being clumsy, which was just a throwaway, plot line, they could have done something like, he had a family and another Gungan was coming in to hurt them, and, he killed them or something, and nobody believes what happened, and, there's just a little bit of a conspiracy there, and they're not sure what happened, and that's why he's banished. And then, that gives more weight. Oh, crap, he shouldn't really go back, because they might try to, execute him. Because he's clumsy? This movie, I give a 6 out of 10. It's a firm 6 out of 10. Because I do enjoy the movie. I have to be in the right mood to be able to want to pay 100% attention to it. It's one of those movies where I probably will put it on, like when I'm cleaning house, or I've got company over and we all may want to riff on it or watch it, or something. It's rarely going to be a movie that I go to and watch fully, but I do enjoy it. Some things that I know people are going to say that I didn't mention, so I'm going to mention them right here so they don't say that, is Jake Lloyd as Anakin and Natalie Portman as Padme. And this is all I'm going to say. Natalie Portman was best as Padme in this movie. She had less lines, but she actually did a really good job with what she was given. Jake Lloyd as Anakin, I felt like he would have done it just as good as anyone else. The failure of the Anakin story is not because of the child who was playing him in the movie. It's because of the people behind the camera. I don't think you could have gotten a better kid actor. You know, it's not like Attack of the Clones when Hayden Christensen was cast. If you really go back and look at when they were filming this movie, there really weren't that many well-known, gifted child actors. And so I don't think you would have been left with anything different than what we got. But that's just my opinion. Again, I give the movie a 6 out of 10. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. Like the video, because if you don't, I don't know whether you like it or not. You know, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Peace out, guys. I'll see you in the next video.